be the greatest spectacle in racing. This is the Indianapolis 500.
Get ready, green.
Most people know about Indiana setting the pace as the racing and sports capital of the world, but the state is also blazing a trail to be a global leader on another front.
Indiana doesn't necessarily come top of mind when you think about life science capitals of a country, but in fact, we are.
How big?
There's over a $90 billion economic impact that life sciences has on Indiana, and over 60,000 employees throughout the state work in the life science area. So yeah, significant impact, one of the largest, if not the largest sector within the state. So very much a crown jewel for the state.
How is Indiana positioned for more growth in the life sciences sector? And what kind of impact could it have on the state? We get perspective from Biocrossroads CEO Vince Wong on this edition of the Business and Beyond podcast. Hello and welcome to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. I'm Gary Dick. Life sciences fall under a giant umbrella. In Indiana, it's researchers developing new drugs at Eli Lilly and Company, or scientists putting northern Indiana on the map as the orthopedics capital of the world. And Elanco Animal Health, innovating products that make pets and animals healthier. Indiana's Biocrossroads plays a key role in coordinating collaboration in the life sciences space. And I'm pleased to be joined on the podcast this week by Vince Wong, the CEO at Biocrossroads here in Indianapolis. And Vince, thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Great to be with you, Gary. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Hey, as we start out, there's so much excitement, momentum, a lot of things happening in the life sciences space in Indiana, which has always been strong. But to me, it seems as though there's just a lot of things coming together now, creating some real momentum. So obviously want to talk about that. But first, some basic definitions. One, Biocrossroads has been around for a long time, advocacy group for the life sciences sector in the state. Give us a thumbnail description of Biocrossroads.
About 25 years ago, the city's leaders had the foresight of, they had great momentum of establishing Indianapolis as the sports capital of the world. The question that they began to grapple with is what's next? And so they created CICP, Central Indiana Corporate Partnership, and identified life sciences as the first sector that they wanted to grow, leveraging some emerging assets at the time. And so they created Biocrossroads to do exactly that, bring together public-private partnership, which makes Indiana and Indianapolis great. And Biocrossroads became the vehicle to enable those collaborations between industry, universities, and philanthropy to all kind of get aligned to try to grow this sector. And so 25 years later, Indiana is the number one state with regard to pharmaceutical exports, number two with regard to exports in life sciences. And so, Indiana doesn't necessarily come top of mind when you think about life science capitals of a country, but in fact, we are. And a lot of that was because of groundwork and collaboration that happened through Biocrossroads. And so great legacy for the organization that I'm really excited to be leading since February.
Yeah. It's hard to believe it's been 25 years because I remember the formation, certainly of Biocrossroads and how that has evolved and grown. One other basic definition as we get started here, Vince, and that's life sciences, because we hear about life sciences and the biosciences and biotech. We hear all these terms, and sometimes people think, well, are they interchangeable? How do you define the life sciences?
Yeah, so life sciences is quite a broad umbrella, and it can include human, animal, and plant science. Biocrossroads is primarily focused on the human health and human science pillar of life sciences. Several years ago, out of Biocrossroads, we created Agronovis, and Mitch Fraser leads that organization, and they're focused on animal and plant science. But we do obviously collaborate because there's increasing intersectionality of approaches and technologies and pathways between animal, plant, and health. And we also are gaining increased understanding of the interrelationship between these different areas as well. And so I think you'll continue to see increased collaboration between Biocrossroads, Agrinovus, and then our respective stakeholders, whether it be industry and or universities.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people may not realize the strengths that Indiana has in human, animal, plant science across all those areas. Indiana, it really has some powerful assets.
Absolutely. Let's start with industry. We're the highest valued human health company and pharmaceutical company in the world here at Eli Lilly. We have leaders in animal health in Elanco, leaders in ag bioscience in Corteva, and then we've got leading research universities at Purdue, IU, and University of Notre Dame. The IU School of Medicine is number 13 with regard to NIH funding in the country. Purdue's, consistently top 5 in patents of all universities in the country. So yeah, we've got incredible assets, and obviously IU Health is a leading health system in the country. But we also have other centers of excellence, whether it be Parkview or community. So from discovery, development to patient care, we've got really strong assets across the board, and especially in some pretty discrete areas too. We've got centers of excellence around cardiometabolic disease. We've got centers of excellence around Alzheimer's, contract manufacturing, orthopedics, and medical devices. And so these are some of the pillars within life sciences where we can really win and be not only best in the country, but even some of the best places in the world that are grappling and solving these very challenging disease states.
You mentioned Lilly. How important, how beneficial is it to have a company like Eli Lilly and Company right here in Indiana? It's been such an important part of our state, our economy for many, many decades. But more recently, the company just seems to be on a roll in so many ways. As you mentioned, by market cap, one of the most valuable companies, pharmaceutical companies of any kind in the world, investing literally billions of dollars here in Indiana and around the globe. Does that even add, a little extra to that impact that Lilly has on what you're doing at Biocrossroads and what others are doing in the life sciences space?
Absolutely, Gary. I mean, there are a number of companies in our ecosystem that are working with Lilly that have been growing and in the contract manufacturing space, and they're enjoying tremendous growth by serving Lilly and others, and just trying to keep up with the demand that is being driven by the integrin therapies, the new class of obesity and diabetes therapies that are really transforming healthcare and even arguably society writ large. It's hard to, pretty much everyone knows someone who's on one of these GLP-1, GLP-1s therapies that are really having great outcomes with regard to diabetes and weight loss.
You talk about centers of excellence and how Indiana can be a real player in these areas. Alzheimer's, obviously, Lilly very much involved in that fight. Why do you say Indiana can really become kind of an epicenter, a global leader in the fight against that terrible disease?
I think it starts with the research excellence that is resident at IU School of Medicine and even at Purdue as well. So both universities, and especially School of Medicine, the Stark Neuroscience Institute there has a critical mass of really world-class researchers, and then also biobanks as well that are really making some breakthrough discoveries with regard to the disease biology. If we go back 20 years ago, Gary, we used to think of cancer as being this monolithic disease. But now, fast forward to 2024, we now know there's at least 30 to 40 clinically relevant different pathways of cancer that each need to be addressed in a different way. And that leads to different types of therapy regimes that then leads to better outcomes for patients. We are at that similar point for Alzheimer's of beginning to understand all the different pathways regarding this disease. And so that's super exciting because a lot of those insights and breakthroughs are being done here at IU School of Medicine, whether in research around inflammation and its role with regard to Alzheimer's, the role of increase of buildup of proteins, amyloid and plaques in the brain, and just really understanding that in order to be efficacious in this disease, you got to go upstream earlier, even before symptoms arise, in order to really have a chance at really slowing the advance of the disease. And so much of those insights are being, again, discovered here at the School of Medicine at IU. And then obviously you mentioned that Lilly's got a very strong portfolio, had a long-standing commitment around Alzheimer's research. Those are beginning to pay off. And then you've also had some really interesting startups at the Indiana Bioscience Research Institute, would be Gates and Monument Biosciences, are doing some interesting research that leveraging discoveries coming out of the School of Medicine. And so between the universities, industry, and startups, we've really got a nice cluster here of activity and excellence in Alzheimer's research.
Another area you talk about, I think frequently, that you feel Indiana can become certainly a player, already is, and that is radiopharmaceuticals. You feel that Indiana can be the radiopharmaceutical capital of the world. To not get too far in the weeds, but to kind of break that down, what does that mean? When we talk about radiopharmaceuticals, what are we talking about? And why is there such a strength here? And what could that ultimately mean for Indiana?
This is really an exciting area. It's primarily in the areas of oncology, being able to attach a radioligand to a payload of therapy to, in a very precision way, attach to cancer cells and attack those cancer cells, and then preserving healthy tissue. And so this is a very fast-growing, exciting area of medicine that, as a result, is seeing a lot of deal activity, a lot of acquisitions happening, where big pharma wants to be part of this action and are acquiring a lot of the startups, including Lilly's acquisition of Point Pharma late last year locally. Because of this confluence of talent, location, and infrastructure, we are really poised to be that center, that capital of the world for nuclear medicine. Talent, because this is a very specialized area of how you handle radioactive material and the manufacturing of that, and then transportation of that. That is very highly specialized, even within the pharmaceutical industry. There is a critical mass of talent here in central Indiana that knows how to do that. And then you've got the country's largest school of nuclear pharmacy up at Purdue. So, really strong intellectual capital and talent here within central Indiana. And then the half-life of these therapies, Gary, is very short. So you got to get out of the factory into the patient within about 12 to 14 hours. And so being centrally located serves us well. We are within 10 to 12 hours of about 80% of the population of the country. So being literally at the crossroads of America really serves us well. And then layer on top of that the transportation infrastructure we have, the second largest FedEx hub in the world, and then the extensive interstate network we have just really facilitates that as well. So all of those things come together that positions us well to be that center of excellence.
You mentioned talent. I want to talk about that in a moment, but who are Indiana's big competitors, if you will, in the life sciences space? Areas, centers that really have clusters of really strong assets. Who are really competing against?
Yeah, I think the conventional leaders, and when you think about life sciences, are cities like Boston, San Francisco, San Diego, and even Austin has been emerging as a life science hub as well. And then North Carolina has a strength with regard to life science manufacturing, biopharma manufacturing. Those are ecosystems that have really good strengths in different areas, pools of capital to fuel startups, strong research universities that pump out innovation, and then companies that are located there that are collaborating with those research universities. And so we do compete with those, but I think we compete best in these areas of strength. And that's really what I've been advocating that we should be focusing on.
Yeah, when we talk about talent, you mentioned earlier the talent that exists here that is substantial. But I know there's a need for more talent, a continual need to keep talent, but also to attract talent in. Where does Indiana, with respect to the life sciences, stand on that whole talent attraction issue?
Yeah, I think it's we've got our work cut out, Gary, with regard to maintaining and retaining the great students that we're educating at Purdue and IU and Notre Dame, and we do a great and Ball State and other universities. We do a great job of educating both our own and even out-of-state students. But we also do an even better job of exporting those. And so how do we retain more of those and connect those students into career opportunities with local employers? And so, there's a lot of efforts with regard to that. I think we have a lot of work to do with regard to that, continued work to do, both with regard to scientists, engineers, but also even cultivating our workforce for manufacturing opportunities as well. And so we received, in collaboration with the ARI, a designation from the federal government, the Economic Development Administration, a $51 million federal grant that was awarded earlier this summer. And part of that will be allowing us to build a training facility, a training institute for biopharma manufacturing at 16 Tech. And that will give us just a really awesome facility for us to provide hands-on training for biotech manufacturing that then creates a job-ready pipeline for individual, companies like Lilly that have just almost incredible demand for manufacturer jobs and people to fill that. So we're excited about that. That will take about a couple of years for us to stand that up and build. But it's a great partnership between Purdue, Ivy Tech, Lilly, ARI, and Biocrossroads that have come, and other stakeholders that have come together to make that happen.
You mentioned 16 Tech, a development that was talked about and envisioned for a long time, now reality on the near west side of Indianapolis, not far from the old Busch Stadium, connects to the IU, Indiana, what's now Indiana and Purdue universities, IU School of Medicine, all those assets, an innovation district. And I know a lot of people championed that for a lot of years. David Johnson, one of your predecessors, a long time CEO of Biocrossroads, a real champion for that. Is it doing how would you rate how 16 Tech is doing? Is it being that attractor of talent? Because it's really a talent play in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. I mean, I think under the leadership of Dr. Alan Palkovitz at the IBRI, which is one of the anchor tenants at 16 Tech, Alan's done a great job of expanding IBRI beyond being a research institute, but also being an incubator for startups as well. And so, that's probably an untold story that we now have this really wonderful incubator space where there's over a dozen startups that are leveraging IBRI's facilities. And Gary, we had a couple weeks ago, we had an opportunity to visit Boston with the Indy Chambers Lex trip. And we had an opportunity to visit Harvard Innovation Lab, which is an incubator for Harvard technology. And I walked in and I was like, wow, our facilities and infrastructure is actually nicer than what they have at Harvard. And so we often have a notion of inferiority about what we have in our own backyard. But in fact, we have really great facilities and should be unapologetic and unabashed about the world-class facility that we have at IBRI. Now we need more of that. And there's plans to build at 16 Tech graduation space so that the startups that are incubated there, when they need to grow, they'll have a place to go. And there are plans at 16 Tech to try to do that in the future. But I think we definitely have the substrate and the foundation for us to continue to build there and ultimately continue to invest. We can't take our eye off the ball. We can't be, looking at the next shiny object. We got to really continue to do the hard work to build the critical mass of talent and companies at 16 Tech to create that density that's so critical for the success of tech innovation districts like Kendall Square, like the Seaport in Boston, like South San Francisco, that you've got, again, this community of innovators that are having these accidental collisions at the water cooler, at the cafeteria, at the restaurants, and we can do that. We've got the foundation set for that.
Innovation, entrepreneurships, startups, all areas of importance overall to Indiana, but in particular in the life sciences space. We'll talk about that and a lot more with Vince Wong, the CEO at Biocrossroads, when the Business and Beyond podcast returns.
At PNC Bank, we're committed to making a difference in the lives of our customers and communities by helping them move forward financially. As a Main Street bank, we try to do right by our customers with every encounter. Our local teams offer personalized financial advice to help guide you in making the best decision. We're proud to be part of your community. PNC Bank. See how we can make a difference for you at pnc.com. Copyright 2022, the PNC Financial Services Group, Inc., all rights reserved.
And welcome back to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. My guest this week is Vince Wong, the CEO at Biocrossroads, the organization that supports in so many ways the life sciences sector in the state, a sector that, Vince, is there an economic impact number or a guesstimate or estimate on how much the life sciences sector is worth in Indiana?
Absolutely. There's over a $90 billion economic impact that life sciences has on Indiana, and over 60,000 employees throughout the state work in the life science area. So yeah, significant impact, one of the largest, if not the largest sector within the state. So very much a crown jewel for the state, and one that we need to continue to invest in.
Yeah, a lot of that impact certainly by large established companies like Lilly and Roche and others, but startups and this whole world of innovation and entrepreneurship that we all talk a lot about here in Indiana. How is it shaping up or shaking out, if you will, in the life sciences space? Are there enough startups happening? Is there enough support from a venture capital standpoint and otherwise? How would you assess the startup landscape, if you will, in the life sciences space?
Yeah, I think there's a multi-dimension equation that needs to add up here. And we're tackling it kind of piece by piece within the value chain. So first off is you've got to get discovery that's translational beyond basic research, that's got translational impact, so that we can actually have an asset that we can actually develop and commercialize. And so we're going to begin in the new year, Gary, is to begin to look at the universities and try to work with the universities to identify discoveries and inventions within the research universities to identify what are the most promising assets that sit in those universities that have an opportunity to get taken out, and then try to create founding teams around those technologies. And so trying to inspire scientists who might be kind of on the edge of the pool, looking to maybe dive in, of like saying, yeah, there's a support ecosystem here. It's not scary. Let's demystify this. Most scientists grow up being very kind of narrowly focused on their research, and they don't know what it's like to raise capital. What's it like to get non-dilutive funding, dilutive funding? How do you go out and raise capital? How do you create a new company? And so we want to create programming and initiatives that support and lower the barriers to entry for would-be scientific founders. We also want to try to connect those scientific founders with business operators. So folks that have maybe 10, 12, 15 years of industry experience in the corporate world who may be interested in jumping into the entrepreneurship space and supporting them. And then try to create that matchmaking, if you will, between a scientific founder and a business founder, and create those founding teams to take those assets out of the research laboratories, universities, into new companies and support those companies through the journey. In order to fuel those efforts there, you also need capital. And so Biocrossroads has historically had seed funds, and all those funds have been fully deployed from a capital perspective. We are in the process of raising a new fund. We're making great progress on that, and more to come on that. But we are excited to have that fund as a source of capital for startups in the ecosystem. Certainly, Elevate Ventures is very active in the area as well, and IU Ventures and Purdue Ventures has done some activity in investing in life science as well. But we think there's additional need for that startup capital within the ecosystem. That's a long-winded answer, but it does take a multi-dimensional approach in order to take us from where we are to the next level.
Is there a missing link or one thing that you would identify as needs to be solved or needs to be improved to really make that whole startup picture improve?
Yeah, I think it is all about kind of nurturing this entrepreneurial mindset, right? Again, creating the conditions that make it align the incentives, getting universities to, like what Carnegie Mellon does, or University of Cincinnati. Actually, or Stanford University, they actually facilitate and give university researchers and professors the freedom to operate, to create room beyond publishing, beyond teaching, beyond administrative duties, to carve out some space for the professors to actually engage in entrepreneurial pursuits, right? And so it's all about people will react to what are the incentives in any given system. And so working with the universities to try to begin to move the needle with regard to changing the mindset and culture of those institutions, because there's incredible innovation happening there. It's about unlocking that and getting that out of the research laboratories.
One more life sciences industry related question. And I was just thinking about 16 Tech, and Mung Chiang, the president of Purdue University, has talked about this hard tech corridor, extending from West Lafayette down to Lebanon, where Lilly's doing all those great things and investing billions of dollars, down to Indianapolis and 16 Tech, and then perhaps down further south to IU. As you look at the kind of the bigger picture, is that something that's real out there from a life sciences perspective, a corridor that can have real impact?
Yeah, I think what at the end of the day it comes to connectivity and between the different areas and different clusters of excellence and expertise. In order to solve hard challenges, it requires a cross-disciplinary approach. And what you have at these different nodes, if you will, is expertise in different areas. So whether it be bioinformatics, whether that be chemistry, whether that be physics, whether that be molecular biology. And so it does require this collaboration. And collaboration is a full contact sport. It's really hard to do innovation in a virtual way. And so this proximity of expertise across these different disciplines and each of the different entities bringing their respective strengths to the table, there is definitely power and value in that. And so I think the greater connectivity and collaboration that we can have between these different entities, the better. And to that end, we've, for instance, have created an innovation entrepreneurship working group back in June that we're beginning to meet on a quarterly basis, of folks from the Idea Center at Notre Dame, Purdue Innovates, IU Innovates, the research leaders of the different universities, the tech transfer offices of the universities, Elevate Ventures, et cetera. We're all coming together to look for opportunities to collaborate, share best practices. And if there's redundancy in the system, at least we'll be intentional as opposed to happenstance. And so it's those kinds of convening and collaboration points that I think help unlock the power of what we can do together.
Always like to get a little personal information on our guests on the podcast. You're a native Hoosier, right? Vince grew up here in the Indianapolis area.
I am, Gary. Southsider, proud Southsider by background. My dad was at Lilly for 32 years as a neuroscientist there, and so definitely was raised in the Lilly ecosystem as a result. And moved away, came back, yo-yoed a couple times, and spent about 6 years out in Arizona. After when I was working at Roche, we acquired a company coming out of University of Arizona, and I went out there as part of the integration team, and then came and was happy to, after 5 or 6 years, to come back to Indianapolis, and we've been back since. And so now we live on the north side of Indianapolis.
You mentioned a number of years at Roche Diagnostics, and then spent some time at a startup too, right before coming.
Absolutely. So I spent 17 years at Roche, and then had an opportunity to help lead a startup, commercializing technology at Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis. It was an RNA technology. We're trying to develop precision medicine tools for gastrointestinal disease management. So inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's disease, and colorectal cancer as well. So that was an incredible journey for 3 years of diving into a startup. It was an incredible experience.
As we wrap up here, Vince, we're named CEO at Biocrossroads in January of this year. Coming into this organization that really, as we've talked about here for the last 30 minutes or so, an exciting time. As you look at the next, say, 5 years, how excited are you about what can happen? And what do you see these next 5 years for the life sciences space looking like here in Indiana?
Great question, Gary. I think, it's next 5 years is really going to be the unfolding of everything we're talking about, right? Right now, these are, by and large, words on a page. And so now the hard work begins in terms of actually executing and standing these things up. And we've got great momentum in that regard, but there's a lot of hard work ahead. And so we're excited about fast forwarding 2 to 3 years from now and looking back and saying, yeah, we stood up mentoring programs for founders. We stood up a peer group, CEO peer groups to support startups. We raised a fund and we're deploying capital, and we've helped start up, X number of startups get off the ground. We've unlocked the potential of intellectual property at the universities into startups. On the manufacturing side, we've attracted companies to the state to locate here. We've enticed companies to expand their footprint here. We've helped develop a pipeline, robust workforce pipeline through Heartland Bioworks to support the growth of our local companies. And Indiana is truly recognized as it should be, as a life science hub. So that's where I think we're going to be in 5 years, and it's going to be fun to execute against that.
Looking forward to following the story. Vince Wong, the CEO at Biocrossroads. Vince, you've got a lot going on, and so much of it is so important for the future of our state as well. So good luck on the journey, and look forward to covering it. Thanks again for being on the podcast.
Absolutely, Gary. Thanks for your support and helping educate the larger community around what we're doing. So thank you.
All right. You bet. And thank you for joining us on this episode of the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. We are a weekly conversation with achievers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond. And you can download all of our episodes and get Indiana business news 24/7. All you have to do is go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I'm Gary Dick. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.